Commander Threx of the Varnak Horde stood tall as his transport ship descended toward Earth's surface, his arms crossed, golden armor gleaming under artificial lights. He had crushed enemies on 100 worlds, broken the pride of warrior kings, and studied every major species in the Galactic Coalition. To him, this assignment visiting a human military academy felt like an insult. Earth was known for chaos, for unpredictability, for stories of impossible victories. Most dismissed them as exaggerated tales. Threx expected noise, disorder, and perhaps a few clever tricks. But when he stepped out onto the stone path of Fort Resolute, everything was still. The air was heavy but calm, the sky gray, the base silent. No soldiers stood to cheer, no horns, no banners. Only a single human officer waited at the gate, offering a nod before turning without a word. Threx followed, frowning. Inside the walls, he saw cadets running drills not for show, but with full gear, sweat on their brows, and focus in their eyes. They moved in teams without shouting, communicating through hand signals and short commands. Every motion had purpose. In one corner, a young soldier disassembled a plasma rifle blindfolded, each piece laid out like a surgeon's table. In another, a group trained in harsh wind under weighted armor, refusing to rest. No one looked at Threx. No one seemed interested in proving anything. It unsettled him more than any battlefield. These weren't wild warriors or loud recruits, they were disciplined, silent, and alert. For the first time in many cycles, Threx felt something stir in his chest. Not fear. Not yet. But awareness. These humans weren't showing off. They were preparing. And he suddenly wondered, what exactly were they preparing for? The silence around him wasn't peace. It was pressure, waiting to snap. Commander Threx continued his silent tour through Fort Resolute, each step heavier than the last. The more he observed, the more confused he became. There were no speeches, no decorated officers giving orders for display, no ceremonial routines. Instead, he saw cadets crawling through mud under electric wire, lifting heavy crates in perfect rhythm, and practicing hand-to-hand combat in a silent ring where no one cheered for victory. Every motion was sharp, precise, and deliberate, as if they had no time to waste. In one section, a group moved through a live fire simulation where drones attacked from every angle. A single cadet led the team, guiding others with 2 fingers and head tilts, using terrain instead of brute force, turning corners into ambush points. The drill ended in 37 seconds. No one clapped. They simply reset and began again. Threx narrowed his eyes. On Varnak, warriors roared when victorious, their pride always on display. But these humans showed nothing, no arrogance, no excitement. It felt unnatural. He passed a strategy room where young soldiers played complex battle simulations, not for fun, but for analysis. They argued over angles, delay timing, and trap radius with such detail that even Threx struggled to follow. "They don't train for honor," he muttered under his breath. "They train to end battles before they begin." As he turned a corner, an old instructor glanced at him and spoke without stopping his march. "You're wondering why it's so quiet?" Threx said nothing. The man smirked. "Noise wastes breath. And out there, breath means life." Then he walked on. Threx stood frozen for a moment, watching the young humans move like shadows across the field. They weren't just disciplined. They were dangerous. Not because they moved fast, but because they didn't move more than they needed to. The next morning, Commander Threx was led to a vast simulation arena known only as Zone Black. The air smelled of steel and old smoke. The instructor beside him explained they would now witness the Predator drill and exercise where cadets are hunted by AI-controlled alien units designed to mimic real battlefield threats. Threx expected panic, retreat, or at best, defensive tactics. But what he saw left him uneasy. The cadets were dropped into the zone without weapons, only basic gear and limited time. The AI hunters, tall, fast, and brutal, were released moments later, tracking heat, sound, and movement. At first, the humans ran like prey, disappearing into fog, into ruined buildings, into the trees. Threx crossed his arms, ready to see fear take over. But then something shifted. The AI units began falling ambushed in silence. One had its sensors destroyed with a tripwire made from fiber rope. Another walked into a dead zone and was silently dismantled by two cadets using only knives and timing. Within minutes, the hunters became the hunted. It was not wild or chaotic. It was planned. Cadets communicated through reflections, through bird calls, through vibrations and steel walls. One AI unit climbed a rooftop, scanning, only to find a message carved into the metal, too slow. Seconds later, it was taken down by a squad waiting beneath. Threx's jaw tightened. These were not children playing war. They were trained to become something else. They mimicked fear only to bait overconfidence. They let enemies chase before turning and striking where it hurt most. The instructor said softly, "They don't learn to survive. They learn to adapt, dominate, and vanish." As the last drone collapsed, Threx didn't speak. The simulation had ended, but something deeper had begun, a fear not of what the humans had done, but what they might do if ever unleashed. After the Predator drill, Commander Threx was taken to a quiet building at the far edge of the academy. No guards stood at the entrance, no banners waved above it. A simple steel plaque read, "Hall of Shadows." As he stepped inside, a heavy silence settled over him. The walls were lined with black panels etched with thousands of names, no ranks, no titles, just names and dates. A soft light glowed above each, and beneath every name was a brief line, location, mission, or sometimes just unknown. Threx walked slowly, scanning the walls, feeling something he couldn't name rising in his chest. This was not a monument to glory, it was a memory of loss. Every corner told stories not of heroes seeking fame, but of people who chose to stand when they could have run. In the center of the hall stood a statue, not of a general or legend, but a soldier in torn gear, carrying another on their back. No face, no name, just the weight of sacrifice frozen in metal. A young cadet stood silently before the statue, hand resting on one of the engraved names. Threx approached but didn't speak. The cadet whispered without looking up. He stayed behind on Centaurus Prime. "Bought us 4 minutes." That was enough. Then she turned and left, leaving Threx alone in the quiet. He realized then that this academy did not teach victory, it taught purpose. These humans didn't fight for power or glory. They fought because someone had to, and they were willing to be the one who did. Threx looked around one last time, and for the first time in his long warrior life, he felt something stronger than pride. He felt respect. These people were not feared because they were strong. They were feared because they never stopped walking forward, even in shadow. As Commander Threx prepared to leave Earth, he stood once more at the gates of Fort Resolute. The academy behind him was quiet, just as it had been on his arrival, but now the silence meant something else. It was not emptiness, it was readiness. His shuttle waited on the landing pad, but the weight in his chest made him pause. In his report to the Galactic Coalition, he would be expected to describe the Academy's structure, training methods, and overall threat level. But none of that captured what he had truly seen. Threx had arrived expecting wildness, perhaps even chaos, but had found something far more dangerous: discipline without ego, power without noise, warriors without need for praise. The humans were not trying to impress anyone. They were simply preparing for the next battle, whatever and wherever it might be. As he turned to leave, the human commandant stepped beside him and said, "Did our academy meet your expectations, Commander?" Threx didn't answer right away. He looked back at the fields, the silent drills, the shadows behind the windows. "No," he finally said. "You didn't meet them. You broke them." Later, when his shuttle lifted into orbit, his final report was simple. Earth's military does not posture. It does not warn. It prepares quietly, completely. And when it moves, it does so with the silence of falling stone and the force of a world behind it. The Coalition read the message carefully. Threat status for Earth was immediately upgraded. But for Threx, it was more than a strategic concern. It was something deeper. He had faced warlords, monsters, and machines, but nothing had ever left him uneasy after leaving the battlefield. Until now. Because now he knew the truth. Humanity didn't need to roar to be feared. They only needed to be ready. And they always were.